All right, baby. Welcome back to the Bung Pod. I'm Ian King, your host, aka Wine Wonder Boy, and we got my co-host here, Jazzy.
Hi guys.
What up? So we have a fun episode today. We have our my dog here hanging out, and so if he barks, we're gonna have to take a quick ad break, and then put him upstairs or something. But anyways,
Or just let him join.
Or just let him join in the pod. Right now he's chilling, being a good boy.
Yes.
But today we have an interesting episode. We're going to be talking about some wine news, a wine heist.
Yes.
Ooh.
Well, and this happened a couple months ago.
It did. It's old news, but I feel like not a lot of people know about it.
Yeah, I feel like there wasn't a lot of exposure on it.
Yeah, it's really
So
interesting.
surprising.
And it's a really interesting, it's a cool story. It's unfortunate. And, well, I don't know how unfortunate it is because there wasn't any loss, really. But
yes.
They caught the guys at the end. But it's a wild, fast and furious story of a wine heist.
Yes.
It's crazy. It's like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, fucking Vin Diesel out there.
Exactly.
Taking over semis and shit.
Yeah. We also have something else to discuss.
We do.
So it came to my attention that we might have not explained our original name of Bung Pod.
Oh, yeah, where the name originates from.
Yes, so
Bung
our
Pod.
Patreon members probably have heard it.
Yeah.
But for you poor people that haven't supported us that way, I guess we can finally tell you what it means.
It's been a secret.
So, what is a bung? Ian, would you like to explain what a bung is?
Of course. Can you open this wine for me real quick?
Yes.
Until we get mic stands. So, a bung. Where does a bung come from? What is a bung? So, we all know what a barrel is, a wine barrel. So, there is a bung hole, and that, ooh, look at that pop. Sounds great. So, there's a wine barrel, and the hole of the barrel where the wine goes into is called a bung hole. And that is the anatomical name for that. And what you put inside the bung hole is called a bung. And bungs nowadays are more silicone. I think back in the day they were wood. Some people in France still use wooden bungs, which is really interesting. And so, yeah, that's where bung comes from. It's the bung that goes in the bung hole. I was going to name the podcast Bung Hole. Just bung hole. But
so many things might pop up if you did that.
I'm not sure if I want the search engine optimization on bung hole.
Yeah, the following. Well, and then the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, so
podcast.
It made sense to have the Bung Pod.
We wanted something that was funny.
Yes.
And entertaining for a name.
Especially when I can bring up bunghole.
Yeah, on the
numerous times on a podcast.
Like when Sam was on.
Yes.
Like when firefighter Sam was on, he said, "I don't think I've ever used the term bunghole before, but now I'm gonna use it all the time.
All the time.
He's gonna find ways to use the word bunghole.
Yes. I will go out of my way to talk about a bunghole now. I mean, how could you not?
That's right.
Especially after a glass or two.
Oh, yeah. You gotta.
And then you just drive into, oh, but have you listened to the Bung Pod?
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
All right, so tell me about this wine. What did I just open?
So this is a Rhone. I think it's like the second white. We usually drink reds on this podcast, mostly because we've been recording during wintertime, and that's the time to drink reds for me. So this is a wine. It's from Upside Down Wines. This is a 100% Rhone. It's a 77% Viognier, 15% Marsanne, and 8% Rhone. So it is a Rhone white blend. It is native ferment in barrel. So it's barrel fermented. Upside Down Wines is from Seth and Audrey Kitsky. in Benton City, Washington, and they live in the Red Mountain area.
Cool.
So most of the vineyards are there. They got this from Yakima Valley, and this is from Kanawak Vineyard.
Sweet. So what we're going to start doing is we're going to start taking photos of the wines that we're drinking and post them for you guys. So if there's anyone that you might have heard of and they caught your eye, we're going to try to make it easier where you guys can reach out to those wineries and find it yourself. I would also like to start doing tasting notes on these, especially for those that are just listening. I think it would be, Ian has an amazing palate on him. I would love to hear his tasting notes on this.
I can get by.
And we all fake it to make it. But I think it would be good for just our listeners to understand what kind of aromas, palette we're getting out of this, even the color. I mean, we don't have to go into a full detailed explanation on what this wine is, but I think it would be good for our listeners, especially to understand and see if maybe it catches their eye without watching this podcast. So, with that being said, Ian, do you want to give me a...
Yeah. So from the color on this, it's almost kind of green, has a little bit of a green and golden, kind of grassy golden hue to it, and it's light intensity. Just by looking at the wine with that gold on it, I think that comes from malolactic fermentation, which kind of turns it into a little bit more buttery. Not a bad buttery, but a good buttery. On the nose, I get a lot of florals from the Viognier.
Oh yeah.
Like kind of perfumey florals, like jasmine, if you will. Jasmine blossom.
Beautiful scent, don't
you
I?
do. And even on the nose, I get some cheesiness, some lees. So this is barrel fermented.
I could see that.
And so I don't know if he stirred the barrel or not. I assume that he would if it's barrel fermented. Some people don't. But even if you don't stir it, you still get some of that lees character. And lees is just dead yeast cells that collect at the bottom of a barrel or bottom of a fermentation vessel of any sort. And so when you stir that in, it gives it like a toasty, like bread and cheesy kind of texture to it and taste. So that's why like really good champagnes, the lees is sitting in the bottle during tirage, and then you can get kind of sourdough or brioche out of those high-end champagnes like that. And so this kind of has that going for it. All right, guys, let's take a break for a minute because if you enjoy this podcast, I have some amazing news for you. Do you want more content from us? Extra episodes per week or behind-the-scenes snippets? Discounts every time we drop some dope-ass merch? Do you want your opinions, hot takes, and topics to be covered on the podcast and to be a producer on our show? That's right. We want your opinions. We want your personal hot takes. Join the Bung Pod Jabroni gang and get your voice heard on this show. Just head to patreon.com/officialbungpod and talk to us. Now let's get back to the show. Sorry, just slurped in the mic. The acids...
You're going to hear a lot of us slurping when we do this.
The Gok 5000.
Why did you just slurp?
I slurp because I want to let air in through my palate up into my nasal passages because 85% of your taste is through your sinuses. So your sinuses are very important to wine tasting if you want to get good tasting notes and stuff and not just down the hatchet. If you grab a bottle that is very interesting and you want to know more about it and whatnot, and you use your senses, and so that's what you're doing.
Your senses are huge when it comes to wine tasting, especially if you want to actually go wine tasting and learn your own palate. I mean, understand where the acidity is coming from, where the sugars, all that stuff, and the tannins, how it sits on your palate, because then you will notice when you take wine, it's easier to understand what flavors you're receiving.
Yeah.
Obviously there's general notes of like say black currants or green apples, citrus flavors, such like that, depending on what grape and if it's a white or a red or anything like that, which you will kind of understand in the beginning. But then you go into more of where I can say, what kind of apple is this? Or what kind of cherry is this? Is this a Rainier cherry or is this whatever else?
Yeah.
I mean,
like a dark, deep red cherry,
yes.
or is that, yeah. And using those tasting notes and getting detailed into like what kind of fruit is it or what kind of apple is it, that's really more beneficial for like blind tastings.
Yes.
Because it'll show you the climate of where this possibly could come from.
Yeah, if it's New World, Old World.
Yeah, so like
cool,
usually warmer
hot.
climates have like more of a baked yellow apple thing going in it. And cooler climates have more of like a Granny Smith if we're talking about white wines.
Yes.
But
and if there's ever a wine that you want us to try and give you tasting notes on,
yeah,
put them in our DMs. We would love to try different wines or even ones that you love and want to recommend one to us. We want to see it and hear it all. And we would love to purchase any of those and give our feedback. We are literally just here to drink wine for a living. So help us. Help you.
We do have a listener that wants to gift us a special bottle that she has for the podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Aww.
So that would be cool. And to have her on, if she wants to be on the podcast, then that would be great to share the bottle with her as well. Because it's her bottle, but she wants us to
enjoy it.
Yeah. So it's
have
really
someone
cool.
that can actually appreciate the wine. I understand that.
Yeah. So it's really awesome. And so we can do more of that later.
Yeah. So another thing we're going to try to start doing is for the listeners, if you are just listening in your car and you want to see what the wine looks like that we're drinking today on some of our Instagrams or TikToks or any of those, we will post, like I said prior, the image of the bottle, but hopefully we'll connect it to where it's located as well. So you guys can find the website and the location of this, and maybe it's close near you and you had no idea.
Yeah. Yep.
And we want to be promoting our family in this industry. I mean, everybody in the wine industry is family, and I've seen that, especially in the past year, that this community comes close together, and anything we can do to support them is supporting us as well.
Absolutely. 1,000%. Yeah. So after all that, this kind of has a little bit of a cannabis nose to it.
No, that's from the edible you ate last night.
I didn't eat an edible last night. I smoked weed last night.
Oh, that was just me then.
I don't know. There's lots of cannabis growing in Yakima. So who knows?
Yeah, it could be surrounded by.
Also a lot of hops too, which is in the cannabis world. So we want to talk about. So we did the Bung Pod origination story. So we're gonna be going into this wine heist, which is fucking crazy. So we'll be focusing on one winery in specific, that is Moet and Chandon, or how I used to call it back in the day, Moet.
I was going to say, was it Moet?
Moet and Chandon.
Chandon.
The Moet and Alizé keep me pissy. Girls used to diss me. Now they write letters because they miss me. Hey! Shout out Notorious B.I.G. So, this is...
That's where I just want to, get up and leave. I'm just like, all right,
That's one of my
done.
karaoke songs, Juicy, my biggie. So, Moet and Chandon. So, something happened in 2021, where an entire flock of sheep was stolen from Moet and Chandon's eco vineyard. So, they're a big company. I don't know if you guys know LVMH. It's Louis Vuitton, I think Moet and Hennessy, I think that stands for. But they own Louis Vuitton, Givenchy, and a bunch of other shit.
Yeah, and they also own a lot of smaller companies as well.
They do, yeah. And so they're responsible for Dom Perignon, one of my favorite champagnes. And so something happened. Thieves have fleeced the world's largest champagne producer. That's hilarious. Stealing
And,
vital.
and where are you reading this information?
Oh,
Just
yes.
So we're quoting.
So, quoting this article, this is from VinePair. Both of these articles will be from VinePair.com.
But there are multiple on the other one we'll be talking about. There are other articles out there that's from their news sources and Wine Spectator and all these other ones that you can take a look at. The details are a little different between each one.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what we'll be going off of today.
Yeah. So Moet and Chandon recently introduced a herd of 14 sheep to its vineyards to cut down on herbicides and install solar paneled electric fence to ensure their security. But on January 2nd of 2021, a shepherd emerged to find the fence's solar panel removed and the flock completely gone.
Okay, so I want to go back to why we don't see sheep around here.
Like we do. We have bighorn sheep in Chelan in the wild, but
in the wilderness.
I mean, you see sheep around. Like we don't have them here in Chelan because we don't have vineyards that are focused on having an eco-friendly vineyard.
Yes.
And so
how do you feel about that? Do you think the Lake Chelan, AVA, or Washington itself should start practicing those? I
do, personally. I know
free labor.
A lot of my wine friends around here are going to roll their eyes listening to this at me right now. But yeah, one of my favorite wineries in California, Tablas Creek, they're all biodynamic. And sometimes some people around here, they're just not exposed to quality biodynamic vineyards because, well, we don't really have a lot of them in the state. And it was never a thing to focus on sustainability. And when I was taking the Wazoo course, no offense to Wazoo because I love them.
No, and they're getting better at it. I mean, this whole state's getting better at sustainability.
Good. I mean, it's all about steps, right? You can't just assume that people are... It's... Going eco-friendly from conventional is very hard. It's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Honestly, that you just have to be waiting on, and vintages, and so it takes years and years to transition into a biodynamic vineyard or organic vineyard or sustainable whatever.
It doesn't happen
vineyard
overnight.
That's not conventional. So it doesn't happen overnight. It's very hard to do. I think a lot of people that know so much about growing vines in the state of Washington that are older, I think they have gained their knowledge through X amount of years of experience, and I just think they just don't want it to be any harder than it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
totally agree.
And I think that's why.
Yes.
There's also a huge cost to the winery or to the vineyard to do that as well. You have to buy things like sheep, and you have to buy dogs to look after the sheep, or buy solar-powered fencing like they did. You don't have to buy fencing, but Moet and Chandon did. It's a lot of fencing. But they have the money, so they can do it. But, it's very expensive, and it takes a lot of time to transition into that, to cut down herbicides and pesticides and whatnot.
But they're also, mowing and then fertilizing with their poop and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's pros and cons to it. It's like you're not really feeding them because they're eating the grass that's around.
You are.
And so, there's two sides to it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Probably selling the wool as well, knowing them.
Selling what?
The wool off the sheep.
The wool? Yeah. They probably are. They're probably making some Louis V out of it. But
Woolly bee, is that what you just said?
Louis V. Louis Vuitton.
Poor guys. Not that they kill them, but
no, they just
go naked.
They just go naked for a time and they grow it back. It's like getting a haircut. So the other one, the main heist that we're getting to is the French police halted $650,000 worth of Moet and Chandon.
Okay, so I want to just make this clear. I've read a couple articles that say 600,000, 650,000. It's in the $600,000 range.
Yeah.
Either way, it's still a lot of a lot of wine.
Still upwards of $500,000.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
a lot.
So what happened, I'll just start the introduction here,
Yeah.
is it was two guys. They stole these semi-trucks and they tried to head towards Paris. And what happened was they were kind of doing the casual, like, nothing to see here, don't look this way, we're just doing our jobs, and just going on with their day.
Yeah.
Then to find out that someone that worked there noticed it was gone, called the police, and there's GPSs on the semi-trucks.
On all the trucks, man.
So then...
It's valuable juice.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
And then they went into a car chase.
Yeah. So the French police, so thanks to the tracking devices, they're able to locate the semi-trucks. And it didn't take French police long to locate them, but they were stopped just outside of Paris, like 12 miles outside of Paris. So apparently there's two thieves, and they attempted to throw the authorities off their tails by swerving in and out of traffic.
Especially against a police car.
Yeah.
Like there's no horsepower at all on those cars.
No. One officer was eventually able to force one truck to slow down, but his driver jumped out of the vehicle and into a sedan.
Yeah, so apparently
while
this
moving.
was like... So what happened is he jumped out of the truck, jumped into the sedan, I think it was a BMW, and took off. Well, during that time, the truck was still moving. So the police officer jumped out of his car, jumped into the truck, and hit the brakes.
Damn. Yo, that's crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
That
What
is
a
some
hero.
Fast and Furious shit.
What a hero.
That is some, like, Jason Statham. Like, Jason Statham.
Yeah, so, and then I
maneuvering.
think the other truck, from what I understand, went off of a random bypass or whatever it was.
An off-ramp.
Yeah, an off-ramp, and then
He
just...
ditched the vehicle.
Yeah, just ditched it. Was out of there.
And the second truck was located hours later with the driver nowhere in sight.
So, did we ever find out if they were caught? So, this happened back in November, around November 10th of 2023. So, very recent. So, you would think by now they would either have a lead or like some sort of...
Yeah, it just says LVMH and Moet Chandon have yet to release a statement regarding the incident, regarding the heist, and the investigation is underway to find the drivers of the vehicle. But
well, and I think I also read there was another kind of exact same situation, but it was only like 50,000 worth. Back in 2022. And same thing, they tried to steal some champagne and couldn't get away because of the GPS tracks. So that's almost 3 different occasions in Paris where they're stealing.
yeah, they're just jacking wine.
They're just jacking wine. They're just on it.
They're like, this economy is fucking insane. I can't afford shit.
It's nuts.
And, like, you know, the French, they like, you know,
okay, but I've
they're hedonists,
definitely
so they like
studied
pleasure.
The French culture and all that stuff, and they need to like realize how good they have it over there.
Dude, yeah.
They have it so good, and
It's pretty dope.
if you've lived in France or from France, maybe you think differently. I'm not against that, but from what I studied, which maybe made it look like gold stars.
Yeah.
It was like on my goal list of like move to France in like 5 years.
Honestly, like, it's so crazy because my buddy moved to Santa Barbara from France. He's born and raised in France. He had a job there. He had like a tech job in France. and then he had to get a job in the States, and he was terrified because it's so hard to fire people at a job in France. Like, there's such a long process, takes like half a year even to do it because you have to go through the government and everything.
Really?
Yeah, it's wild. And so, in order to fire someone, like quitting is super easy, but firing someone is really, really difficult in France.
See, where in Washington you can get fired for tying your shoe the wrong way.
Yeah, like in the States, it's like, oh, we don't like you, you're fired, or whatever. I mean, you have to have like a reason. Like, you could go back and sue the company, like, oh, they fired me off of my political views, and that's bullshit, or whatever. Or like, I have a disability, they fired me off of that. So you can't do that, but unless you want to get sued. But you can fire anyone for any reason, really, like legally.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
In the States. And he was terrified. He was like, well, if I don't do a good job, they're just going to fire me. And I had to tell him, like, no, like, we don't want to fire people in the States. It's not like you hire people for a reason.
Yeah.
And if you see the value in that person still, you keep them on and you just try and correct the mistakes or whatever they're making, or make them invest in them and make them better. But in France, it's so hard, so fucking hard to fire people. And
oh God, I kind of wish it was like that here. Like, there's situations of like how people manage.
Yeah.
Where they can just get so sick of you that they just fire you instead of maybe they need to take the time and retrain themselves as a manager.
Yeah.
It's, not everybody was born to be a manager.
Correct.
And that's totally fine. And I know friends that are like, I know for a fact I'm not a manager. Please don't give me that position.
Yeah, like, I
can't manage
shit.
people.
Yeah.
When I hear that, respect.
Mm-hmm.
If you can tell, like...
Well, because they know themselves.
Yes, if they know themselves well enough to...
Self-awareness.
Say that, awesome.
Yeah.
But the people that are too almost stubborn to not realize that they're good managers, it makes it hard. Because then they start micromanaging or whatever it is, and then next thing that you know, they're getting frustrated because you're not doing what they want you to do.
Yeah.
And now you're fired because they couldn't take a different approach to it. And that's just a thing that happens in the United States where...
That exact thing happened to me.
Yeah, I believe it.
Not in the wine industry.
Yeah.
It wasn't before. Oh, I took a break from the wine industry because it wasn't making money. And so I tried to do like a tech job, software job, and stuff. And they were just...
Well, and I
don't do well with the office world and too inappropriate.
Like at banks and stuff, that can be a big problem. Is they have these managers that have been there for forever, so they keep getting bumped, and because they have nobody else.
Yeah.
And then they don't know how to do that position or manage that person. So now all they're doing is micromanaging or not managing at all, and just leading people that maybe either want to learn or trying to do their best to a whole different wrong path.
Yeah, and why risk getting fired when you can just steal $650,000 worth of champagne?
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's take a break for a minute, because if you enjoy this podcast, I have some amazing news for you. Do you want more content from us? Extra episodes per week or behind-the-scenes snippets? Discounts every time we drop some dope-ass merch? Do you want your opinions, hot takes, and topics to be covered on the podcast and to be a producer on our show? That's right. We want your opinions. We want your personal hot takes. Join the Bung Pod Jabroni Gang and get your voice heard on this show. Just head to patreon.com/officialbungpod and talk to us. Now let's get back to the show.
Did you see, I just saw this on social media yesterday or something like that, where it showed a prison in Norway. And it was this like high security prison. Who knows if this is actually true? I saw it on like Instagram. So who knows? But it's like they have like pottery class and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I sent it to my friend. I go, why is it that I'm about to go to Norway and commit a crime? Like,
just for a better living.
for a better living. And it's, I mean,
I
they
need a better
actually,
living situation. Let's go to Norway and like do
yeah,
some
I mean,
shit.
they actually take the criminals, like, oh, like, they need help. Let's try to better themselves.
Yeah, because they are true correction facilities
Yes.
where they try, and the point of you actually going to the correction facility in Norway, it's also in Sweden and Denmark have the same
I was going to say, I
has
think
the
I've
same
heard
setup.
Sweden especially.
I've heard more about the Denmark quote unquote prisons. They're not like our prisons where it's just like, concrete walls in the cage. It's
Yeah.
they're like rooms. It's like a 3-star hotel. And they actually get decent food, and then you go to, like you said, it's about they're their investing into the public, the worst of the public. They're investing in them and trying to correct their behavior so they can be a a giving person of
Like,
society,
yeah, a good human.
a good human. And and so they actually put their money where their mouth is and have them take classes and stuff, and there's education in there too.
See, I would love to know that we were doing that for our prisoners. Like, yes, they messed up, whatever. But as my tax dollars, now you're just having them sit in there, do absolutely nothing with their lives, grieve over something that they did instead of trying to correct it. I mean, of course they have these little jobs and do this and that, but like,
Yeah.
make it a positive experience of like not so positive that I need to just like go commit a murder right now, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It just makes sense that you are trying to benefit the community by putting their tax dollars into actually caring about these people
Yeah.
that live in this society.
Absolutely.
Especially when they get out.
Yeah. I mean,
and giving them the option to be successful and changing their lives.
yeah.
Especially the felons.
Yeah, I have a certain view. It's popular in some communities, but in others it's not really, because it's like the dark side kind of America.
Explain.
Well, it's like the 13th Amendment, right? So 13th Amendment abolished slavery, but there was I'm simplifying it way too much, but there's kind of like we're abolishing slavery, but prisons. So it's now, we haven't completely abolished slavery. We just moved it into prisons, essentially.
Yeah.
Because there's so many United States products that get made by prisoners where they're being paid 12 cents an hour,
I was going to say
whatever
12,
it was.
20 cents, whatever
yeah,
it is.
something like that. Like Swiffer wet jets, stuff.
Really?
Yeah, I know for a fact Swiffer's on the list. I don't remember what the other ones are.
Well, and it's also like in the fire department. They have the chain gangs go out.
Right.
Hopefully nobody takes offense to that term, but that is the term.
Yeah.
Well, who knows if it's the official term. It's my official term. But
yeah,
I mean,
and so it's
at least they're out there helping the community fight a fire.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'd love seeing that. Get them outdoors.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I like that a lot, but like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I grew up around, most of my friends were immigrants and people of color growing up, and so there is a thing, and also me growing up in the hip hop and all these lyrics and whatnot, where they go in on the 13th Amendment and how many black men are in prison for stupid shit,
like selling weed,
and then they're
or honestly, for even just smoking weed.
Yeah, and then now they're just
sitting there, rotting,
and being used to make Swiffers. And then you have people like Prodigy, who's the second half of the the rap group Mobb Deep. Prodigy went to prison, and then he worked in the kitchen. He learned about culinary arts.
I did know about that.
And then he got out of prison, and he released a cookbook.
Which is awesome.
It's a prison cookbook.
It's there are cool things. So there was a
Prodigy.
story that I heard, who knows how long ago this was, of a guy that was in prison for forever, and every day he would imagine this one golf course that he used to play as a kid or prior to going in. And he would imagine this course, and he went back to this course and then shot like the course record.
Really?
Because once he got out, he went and played, and he had this whole thing in his head of how he was going to play the course and all this stuff that he actually went out and like set the record.
That's dope.
Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing.
I mean, and that's how when I go play golf, I'm thinking, what are going to be my next 3 shots if I get it to where I want it to go?
Right.
First problem.
I don't know shit about golf, so.
Yeah. But
I just know hit the ball with the stick.
And put it in the hole.
And put it in the hole. Drink Coors Light in the golf cart. That's all I know.
Normally I just drag you with the guys and
I mean, I talk to my girlfriend's dad about this. He's a big golfer and he is good.
Yeah.
Like he's really good. Him, his son, as well is really, really good. And they go play together. Oh my God. Like the shit that he comes back like, oh yeah, I only shot this and that. And I don't really know much about golf, but I've watched my dad golf and he was stoked about getting like, you know, scoring like 95 on a course, whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like sick, you know? And then I go to my girlfriend's dad and he's shooting like, I don't even know what it is.
Probably like
70s.
Low 70s.
It's like
around par.
Yeah, around par, exactly. And I'm just like, dude, good fucking job. And he was like, it was all right. And I'm like,
that's like my.
So that's opposite. My dad would like dream of that shit.
Yeah, right. My parents are really big golfers, and
I just never got into it. But
well, for me, it was my dad came up to me, and I'll never forget this. It was in high school, actually freshman year, going into high school, and he looked at me and he goes, "You're playing golf or you're not getting your license. So which one do you want?" All right.
Play some fucking golf.
I mean, I ended up becoming a 5 handicap and
I don't know what that means, but
probably 40 different scholarship offers, and I took
Oh, so you're good then.
none of them. And I went to WSU and drank my life away.
Wazoo didn't give you a scholarship for golf?
No, they offered me to walk on though. But I declined it because I had to work.
Word, yeah.
I couldn't not have a scholarship.
A work life.
But,
crazy.
Yeah. That's
nuts.
But golf is a great networking tool. I've used it to get into the wine business. I've used it for multiple things. It's, again, I brought it up on an episode prior, is like, if you know wine, you can jerk off any CEO. And that's kind of like talking golf as well.
Yeah.
Which is really fun.
Yeah. If you know some wine, like a little bit of wine lingo, some buzz, like keywords and stuff, and then know what to order.
Yeah.
Like
and then look like you know how you're tasting, even though it could, if you make it look like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah, those CEOs will jerk off to you.
Yes, any day.
They'll put your picture. They'll take a picture of you ordering wine, and then they'll just jerk off to it.
Yeah, and then you'll be planning your next tea time.
Yeah. Tea time, baby. Tea time, tea time, tea time, tea time.
And you'll just have Coors Light then.
Yeah, exactly. Or bring a Karma canned.
Yes, or a flask of whiskey.
Or a flask of whiskey.
Birdie juice.
Birdie juice, baby.
I don't get those very often anymore.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening to the podcast. We're about at time right now, but I mean that heist thing was crazy. Like that whole thing, super like fucking Fast and Furious.
I know
and they did it with BMWs.
Yeah, I believe it was with a BMW. From one of the articles,
Fancy
again, all these articles had different little details, different pricing. So just depends on which one you guys look over if you guys end up searching more on this.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating. And
yeah, I want to talk more about wine news on this podcast too when it pops up. So I'll have to subscribe to different wine news for wine specific things. But
yeah,
something that seems tasty.
Try to get our listeners informed as well.
Hell yeah.
The wine news is always interesting.
Yeah.
Even if it's a new vessel or a new grape or the effects of smoke on the vines. I mean, it varies all over. And even just research or maybe what's being predicted in the next season.
Yeah.
You know, we could even do a thing on what NOAA predicting for next season.
Who's that? The Ark guy? The guy from the
Noah?
Ark? That the dude from the Ark? He's still around?
Yeah, he's still around.
Noah's doing weather shit?
Yeah, no, he's doing weather shit.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a guy.
You know a guy? Who's the
Yeah.
guy?
Noah.
Noah?
I know a guy.
Oh my god, you're so stupid. Oh my god. We need to wrap this up.
This is going to go, okay, I actually want to keep this going into our Patreon right now. So thank you guys so much for listening to the Bung Pod with the Wine Wonder Boy and Jazzy. Cheers.